Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us. I know we still have a few folks connecting to audio here, but welcome. My name is Kim Wallace, and I work in the Office of Alumni and Parent Engagement at Kenyon. And I have the pleasure of working with a number of wonderful alumni and parents like those who've offered to give their time here today. So this group of folks, we're calling our LA Entertainment Group. So it is a group of seasoned professionals within all aspects of entertainment, and they all introduce themselves and talk a little bit more about what that means for them. But what we hope for this group is that they can be a resource and a brain trust to all of you when thinking about whether or not a career in entertainment might be the right choice or the right move. So without further ado, I want to hand it over to one of our moderators for today, Andrew Kurland.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. This is the first of these calls, first of these Zooms that we're going to do, hopefully. So forgive us as we figure out how we go through this process. But we wanted to just get to say hi to everyone and start this off as a really free-flowing conversation amongst our panelists. First off, again, thank you all for taking the time to join us. We are a collection of Kenyon alum, Kenyon parents, and just big fans of The Hill. So we're really excited to be talking to you and telling you a little bit about who we all are and what our industry is as a collective, and as sort of where we fit in it. Our goal with this, as often entertainment kind of seems like this big, vast, scary, undefined thing. And our goal with this and what we'd like to do is just sort of give you senses of who we are and how we fit into it, and probably try and provide a little bit more structure and understanding as to what it is we do. I think I can speak for all of us that are on this panel that work in this business across all of the different mediums that we do. It's the greatest collaboration of people in the world, and we are so lucky to be a part of it, and want to just share that with you all. So I'll start off by saying I'm Andrew Kurland. I graduated Kenyon College in 2009. I'm from Los Angeles. I lived in Europe before coming to Kenyon. I have been at my job for 13 years. I work at a company called ICM Partners. I'm a talent agent within that company. Our company is a full service talent agency. So we work across any possible aspect of entertainment and representation that you might be able to think of. We have hands in that. I specifically work in representing actors and actresses in film and TV. I'm just going to go down the line of people that I see that are on this group. So Daphne, I kick it over to you.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me. And so I have a son who's graduating this year. And so we're super excited about that. And Kenyon has been such a wonderful place for us. So I am SVP of Emerging Formats Mastering and Content Acquisition at Warner Brothers. And now we're calling ourselves Warner Brothers Discovery due to that acquisition that just occurred. And so my role is basically I oversee the creation of the asset that you all see on your television. So anything that has to do with Warner Brothers Television or Warner Brothers new release feature, we create masters that then are streamed. So I work super closely with post-production. I work with production, mastering, localization. So that means we take assets and we localize them, subbing and dubbing for the world, as well as creating assets for the archive. We also work very closely with the global media supply chain into HBO Max. And so, yeah, I've been doing this for 25 years. I am obsessed with my work. I love it. I'm so grateful to have been at Warner Brothers for 16 years. And it's a constant problem solving day. Every day is something new. And so I encourage all of you to ask all kinds of questions about sort of the downstream work. And should I pass it to someone, or Andrew, do you want to take it?
I will throw it over to Will.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. So I live in LA. I'm also from LA. I graduated from Kenyon in 2005. So my work is project-based. So I don't work for a particular employer or like in an office for more than a few days or a few weeks. I'm a lighting designer for theater and dance productions. And then on film projects, I'm a cinematographer and a colorist, and occasionally a producer. So the reason I was like particularly happy to be on this panel was I knew that kind of the ranks of like executives and agents and people who work in offices would be like very well represented from from past meetings I've been to. So I wanted to provide the perspective from someone like me who works on the physical side of production and on crews, like sometimes literally with my hands dirty. And also because I work between theater, dance, and film. So I thought that might be of interest to some of you. So thanks.
Great. Emily?
Hi, everyone. I'm Emily. I graduated Kenyon in 2011. I was an American Studies major. Never in a million years thought I would go into film, and actually moved to DC, like I'm sure many of you did or are going to after graduation. Ended up back in LA where I'm from, and kind of stumbled into film development. And now I kind of can't imagine doing anything else. I previously was at Netflix for 4 years as a studio exec there in their big like tentpole group. And now I am producing. So I just pivoted over to that. I'm actually producing for Netflix right now. I'm in London. And it's been a lot of fun, and fun to be on the other side of things and getting my hands really dirty.
Great. Janet?
Hi, I'm Janet Borba. My son, Walker Borba, who some of you may know, is up. I see some smiles. I like that. Is a junior at Kenyon. And thank you very much for having me to speak today. I work at HBO and HBO Max. So we are part of Warner Brothers Discovery, sort of a sister division from Daphne's work at Warner Brothers. I have been there for, I joke all the time at my interview, I told them I would stay for a year because I was a producer out in the field, and that was 26 years ago. So it's a fantastic company with a real kind of, at its DNA, a real desire for excellence, which is a really fun environment to go to work to every day. I started out, I did my undergraduate on the East Coast, and then after a brief stint in construction, no relation, and yet very related, I came out to Los Angeles and went to grad school at USC. There's a producers program at USC, because I had no frame of reference, as many of you may not, for how you got into film and television work. And at the end of that, I started working as a director's assistant, and then kind of grew up to be a producer, and then came into HBO. So I'm a mad advocate for careers in this industry. As Andrew was saying, it's wildly collaborative. It is populated by incredibly smart, articulate people who are very fun to spend your workday with. And it's always about problem solving all day long. My work now is largely in the manufacturing part of production. I don't do the creative work. I figure out kind of where, when, how long, how much money, when can we be ready kinds of questions for HBO and for HBO Max, with a group of people I love, clearly, because I've stayed a long time. So that's it for me. Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you. Rich?
Hi, I'm Rich Klubeck. I had a daughter who graduated Kenyon a couple of years ago. She does Teach for America now in DC. I'm an agent at UTA, a fierce competitor of Andrew's company. And I represent mostly directors, but also a lot of writers and actors. And, I work in a lot of different areas. I do film. I mean, I came into this through film, but I also do a lot of television. I represent Mike White, who did The White Lotus. I just want to throw out one reference that everyone will go, oh, I love White Lotus. I represent American filmmakers, but lots of Europeans as well. And before I've been an agent, I've been here for 18 years. But before that, I worked a couple of different film companies. I worked with Danny DeVito at Jersey Films. I worked with Mel Gibson at Icon. I'm happy to answer any questions about Mel Gibson. I'm sure you all have questions. And I worked at Castle Rock back in the day during Seinfeld. And I was a lawyer before that. I went to law school at Berkeley. So I can answer lots of questions about bad jobs I've had, good jobs I've had. And before I went to college, I was a theater usher. That was my favorite job. So
I think with Mike White and the HBO Max connections on here, we should have them sponsor the next Zoom.
oh, yeah.
There's some nice synergy as we go through it.
I think so. They're in
Speaking of
Sicily.
HBO,
Right.
Yeah, I kick it over to Samie next.
Hi, everyone. I'm Samle Kim Falvey. I graduated in '96. Hi. And I'm really excited to see the turnout here because when I was at Kenyon, there was nobody for me to talk to about my love of TV and film. And I actually had to like make up this bogus concentration so I could kind of study it. So it's great to see that a community is, sprung out of it and there's a great department. And that even the alumni community is really rallying behind all of this interest. So glad to see it. Glad Andrew is taking the reins of this and bringing us all together. I spent, I spent 17 years working at Fox and Disney, a lot of that with Jonathan Groff, who's down there and you'll meet in a minute. And then I spent some time running Imagine Television. I was the chairman of Imagine Television. And then last fall, I came over to a company called Picturestart, where I run film, TV, and audio. Audio is a new thing for me, but it's great. Super, super fun. We make film, TV, and podcasts. And it's really, I think everything in my career has kind of been a training ground to like leading me to this moment, running a startup in all three of these disciplines on the heels of a pandemic. It's like the Iron Man I never thought that I'd be training for, but here we are. And I will tell you that I got into the business because I felt like it was creative and dynamic and that, every form of human connection relates back to what we do in every aspect of the business. And that's just proven true time and time again. So it's a very, very, very exciting time to be in the business. And I'm really excited to chat about it.
Couldn't agree more. And Jonathan, kick it over to you.
Hi, hey everybody. I'm Jonathan Groff. I'm a parent of Edwin Groff, who's a first year baseball player, having a great time. He's in Allegheny, Pennsylvania today, playing a doubleheader. Important to make the playoffs. I went to college, did not go to Kenyon, but I've been in the business for a long, long time. I started out as a stand-up comedian and actually did stand-up at Kenyon College, possibly when Samie was like a fresh person or a sophomore or something like that. At Pierce, she has no memory of it. She was probably doing something better that night than coming to a stand-up show. But I have worked with her. She's great and indicative of how smart and just vibrant and connecting Kenyon people are. And thrilled that my son is there. I started as a stand-up. I've been a half hour. I was a sketch comedy writer at Late Night with Conan O'Brien. So I know a fair amount about the late night comedy variety world, although it's been a minute, because then I segued into doing half hour comedy and have been in that business for a long, long time and have been a showrunner, and I'm working on a show right now for Freeform that'll air on Hulu the next day with a very funny comedian and writer and actor Phoebe Robinson, who was one of the two dope queens. And Samie and I worked on Blackish together at ABC, which was really cool. So that's my background. Happy to talk about those first jobs that you get and long range approach to building a writing career and starting with your group of people at college and then right after, how do you kind of build your world and build out and build good relationships with people who you're excited about working with, because it's always about working with people you love on something you love.
I think that's actually a perfect segue, Jonathan, because there's been a couple of things that have popped up in the chat already that I think it's sort of important. And as we have students on here that are, thinking about this next step in their lives and joining this, this professional realm, I open it up to the panel just to say sort of what are things that either you experienced from Kenyon that brought, that sort of made you uniquely shaped to take that next step into your next professional phase, any part of entertainment. For parents as well, I would kick it to you guys and say, what do you feel, watching younger generations come through, what, those sort of things are that separate someone from their competitors in mailroom situations or, new hires. I will start off by saying, because this probably pertains to you and me, because someone asked about this here, the mailroom classes, as people start, the question was what differentiates some candidates that come through than over others. And, the mailroom, for those that are unaware, for at least the agency business, and as well, I assume at studios and other places, it's the sort of ground floor. It is, in many cases, I would always call it, it's the grad school of entertainment. And the agencies really sort of the agency mailroom really starts sort of as the nexus. I feel like a lot of people, if we polled our community of who started in a mailroom, there will be a lot of people that have that. I think for me, and what I look for in that, what I see as something that's always very helpful, is there's a lot of downtime in a mailroom. It feels like it might be the bustle and like it might be the center of this nervous system, but there's a lot of time spent on your phone or just sort of twiddling your fingers.
There's no mail anymore too, right?
That ends up being the biggest issue, is that mail comes very infrequently now. But what that does, when you're at these companies and and I think this goes for anyone that's sort of any sort of job that you get into, is like, what are you doing to be proactive to take in all of the information that's going on around you? And not only as sort of passively as you do it for yourself, but also how can you be, I think, aggressive in going forward and making the connections with those around you, and putting yourself out there in a way that shows your drive and your passion and your willingness to learn. I think for Kenyon students, what I always found so great and so amazing for me, I was an English major, was all we did was talk. We sat in a room and you were forced to give your opinion. There was no hiding. There was always accountability about who you were and your voice in giving an opinion. And I think for all of us in what we do in entertainment, opinion is so valuable. I always think that opinion is your currency in many cases. So it's like who you are and what you bring to the table. I think having that strong opinion, not being afraid to, give it and to be challenged by it. And again, I think that's a very Kenyon thing, to know how to answer that and work with that. But to me, that's always very important, someone who shows that initiative and takes that step forward, and is willing to meet someone eye to eye and say, I have an opinion, I can differ with that, or I can, show who I am in this conversation. But I open it up to other panel members if other people have advice on that. Jonathan, I know you mentioned talking about that as well.
Maybe I should, because just go on the mail. I was not in the mailroom because I started in other jobs. I came to UTA really to run the independent film group years ago, because I worked on independent films. And but I don't have a specific, like, how did I succeed in the mailroom, because I didn't. But I do, I am very involved with our mailroom and our hiring. And I guess I definitely agree with Andrew that, being really expressive about who you are, what you like, what you want to do, like that. It's a hard industry for shy people. I hate to say that, because it's not an impossible industry for shy people. It's just that if you're an extrovert, it comes natural. And if you're not, then you've just got to push yourself to make your taste and your interests known and to connect with people about that. I hate talking about networking. I never thought of myself as a networker, even though I'm an agent. But the truth is, there's a lot of people to know in the industry, and the way there's really a couple ways to get out of the, the sort of starting phase. You're all thinking about, how do I get into it? And how you get into it isn't that complicated. Certainly talking to Andrew and me, we're agents, you apply to our mailroom, and then that's how you get into it. But what I'm talking about in terms of how I think people succeed, at least how I see people succeeding, and I've had a lot of assistants here, because you have a new assistant every year as an agent. Some of them don't work out. So even if I had one a year, I'd have 18, but I actually have had like 25. And I really care about that. And I think the way people succeed is by really spending some time thinking about what they want to do. And I knew what my interests were, right? I grew up with loving a filmmaker that we can't even talk about now, Woody Allen. And so for me, I kind of knew my taste. I really I knew the filmmakers I liked. I knew the writers I liked. I knew the movies I liked. I knew the television I liked, and I loved to talk about them. And I think that the people that succeed in our place are people that aren't here because they think the notion of entertainment is interesting. They're here because they actually are interested in the entertainment itself. They love movies. They have to love all movies. You just have to know what movies you love. It doesn't have to be just one kind. It can be multiple kinds. What television shows do you love? What theater do you love? What actors do you love? What writers do you? A lot of you probably love movies, but you don't really think about who wrote that movie, or you don't maybe not think about who directed that movie. But if you want to be at a talent agency, the first word is talent, meaning who's making this stuff? Who is it that you would love to represent? Who is it that excites you about this business? So I'm always like, you know, my eyes glaze over when someone says, I want entertainment. I'm like, well, that's pretty generic. But when they say, I want to represent directors because I love Martin Scorsese, or I love, you know, whoever it is, I love Phoebe Waller-Bridge, or whoever it is you love, like now all of a sudden I'm listening and I'm not unique. Everybody's listening because everyone said, well, okay, so if that's who you love, well, who else do you love? And what else do you watch? And if you love watching stuff, well, this is the job for you, because the people that are succeeding love watching stuff and they want to know what you love. So that's really, for me, when I interview people, my first question is always, I'm not going to ask you your favorite director. I don't have a favorite director, but I'm going to ask you, what filmmakers do you love? What writers do you love? What shows are you watching that you love? Who do you think is the next coolest thing? What is over that I don't realize is over? Like, I just want to know, how current are you in the culture? And then all of a sudden I'm super interested. So I hope that makes you feel, for the people that don't think that's interesting, then at least my part of the business isn't, and Andrew's and Sammy's, you're probably not really so focused on what we do. That's cool.
I think Rich said something very smart there, which is there is a language that we speak in that way, and it's a love language, certainly, about the products that we get, that we get to be handed, but the art of it as well. And I think to that point, I would encourage, I think a lot of people view entertainment in many ways as a finished product business. No one watches the credits anymore. I get it; they're really long now, but like, having an understanding of who those people are in the credits, like sit and watch them, see the community in the village it takes to make this art, and the sort of what comes into it, and how you can speak fluently about someone's influence in that art. Again, it goes back to your opinion and being able to talk about these things. To Rich's point, it doesn't need to be a laundry list of knowing someone's IMDb. It's about who you are and seeing who the person is. I want to ask sort of the same question to Jonathan and Will and Samie, people who have, and Emily as well, and I guess Janet, Daphne, who have hands in more creative sides of things than sort of what maybe Rich and I might do. How did this, if you're not going to go into something that feels more rigid and structured in terms of sort of the mailroom and then sort of a linear progression, how did that work for you? What advice do you have in that way that might be able to help people that are on the Zoom that feel more attuned to the creative side of things than perhaps executive side of things?
I have a funny story about that, Andrew. So when I was first out of Kenya, this was probably 15 or 20 years ago, I later ended up going to film school. I actually went to American Film Institute for cinematography later. But before that, when I wasn't sure if I might want to work in a studio or an agency, I got an internship, which Samie will think is very funny when I tell you who I interned for. It was Eric Feig. And at that time, his company was called Summit Entertainment. And that was in the days before Twilight, when they were an international distribution company mainly. And I spent a number of months basically reading scripts and then explaining the scripts to Eric and to like there was only two other people in that department then. And I hated everything about that job. And I decided at that point that clearly I was never going to work in an office. I could not believe that it was even I even considered that for a moment, because I felt so separated from where I wanted to be. But it was very educational for me to see the kind of discussions that are being had in those meetings about scripts. And that's something that Kenyon prepared me very well for. about reading a script and like discussing what the story was and dramatic problems it might have had. I still, to this day, don't understand how they decided what movies to make and what not to make. I I read the script for Twilight before they made it, and they were deciding, and I mean, I wrote the coverage of it, and I was explaining, like, I don't know why they love each other. It doesn't make any sense to me. Clearly, no one will watch this movie. So I was not cut out for studio work and agency work. So since then, I went to film school, and that created a lot of opportunities for me and networks of people, and that's how I kind of ended up where I am today. So that's a long way of saying you can use these early jobs and early internships to help inform you of what kind of environment you might want to be in, because you don't know. You don't have enough experience yet to know that you want to work in a studio or an agency or on set or in a studio or things like that. I just want to say one more thing, because someone earlier asked how Kenyon prepared me differently than other places might have for what I do now. So now, as a cinematographer and a designer, I spend pretty much all my effort and energy like discussing things with collaborators and like trying to convince them to do what I want and trying to hear what their ideas are and like and kind of negotiate and talk, and sometimes that happens in writing and sometimes it's in person, but I think that's like, I can't overstate enough how important that is to my job now, because when you're more experienced, the actual technical knowledge, everyone knows how to do everything already. What separates you to be a good someone who people want to work with is how you are as a collaborator and how you inspire them. And like when you because I'm like a designer and cinematographer, so it's usually a director who I'm talking to or a choreographer or things like that. You want to feel like energized when you're talking to them and coming up with new ideas, and that's something that I think Kenyon prepared me well for. So I just wanted to say that.
Anyone else? Go for it.
I always say, sorry, there's some construction going on at 9 o'clock at night where I am, but I always say that essentially a lot of my job is what I did at Kenyon. I mean, I was American Studies with an emphasis in American Lit, and instead of just writing and talking about writers who are likely dead, you're talking to writers who are alive. It's so much, I think a lot of times it can be scary for people because you hear, you know, all these people around me went to, you know, USC film school and everyone knows this, this, and this. And I can tell you that, like, for me, I started out and the first internship I got was because other Kenyon students were there. And like, it's such a small but very mighty group of alums and parents that are just so eager to help. But I think also want to help because you went to Kenyon, but also it's a very specific skill set that you get. You know, no one's forced to, unless you're, you know, you're a film major and that's awesome, but most people aren't like forced to sit in a class and watch, you know, the AFI 100 films. You kind of have to do it on your own and put in that work. But I can tell you that like the backbone of everything that I do on a day-to-day is really just what I learned at Kenyon. It's talking to people, it's being, you know, it's being able to articulate what you like and what you don't like, and trying to find fixes in a lot of things. Like what I do is essentially just puzzles every single day of how do you, I mean, now it's like you have one day to shoot this and your script is that your scene is 4 pages long. How do you get the same thing into something that's a page and a half? So that's all to say, Kenyon prepares you totally fine.
I'll jump in and build off what Emily said on the student. What you're doing already at school is huge. I talk to kids coming out of my college, my alma mater, all the time, and it's a similar kind of place, like smart, articulate people who are talking about stuff all the time. I think a lot of it too can be the student organizations and the extracurriculars that you're doing, not just the work in the classroom, looking at text like what Emily's talking about, which is an amazing experience, and Kenyon does as well as any school or better in the country, I think. But the kind of people that you meet, like when you're making a short film on your own, or working a theater company, or directing a play, or doing all the myriad things, like take advantage of that kind of stuff to not only build those contacts with people who may go into the business, and that alumni network starts with your peer network right now, but also the skill set of working and bumping heads with and rubbing shoulders with and arguing with and debating all of these things on something you really care about, with really smart, creative, talented, passionate people, all of whom really care about what they're doing, whether it's the play, whether it's the film, whether it's the Kenyon farm or whatever. And those skill sets, because I ran the college radio station at my college, and that was very different, but I still draw on things in terms of like, how do you get people to pull in the same direction? How do you articulate a vision? How do you change that vision when somebody else has a better idea, and collaborate and all that stuff? And that is so much what this business is. That's how you end up being the head of an agency, I think, or a film director, or a producer, or a showrunner, all the things you want to do, or an executive that has a lot of projects going on. Like, being that kind of person that can bring people together, articulate a vision, change the vision, play well with others, be excited about what you do. All of that starts with stuff you're already doing, and look to build on that. Because I swear I'm building on things that are conversations I'm having on set are similar to conversations I was having when I was 19 years old, trying to figure out how to make the radio station budget work and change, adapt the music format to be something that was more, accessible. So, give yourself already credit for stuff you've already done, and build on it, and draw that line through the beginnings of your careers.
I totally agree with that, Groff. I mean, I think my mom and Bob Iger gave me the same advice. Bob Iger, for those of you who don't know, was the CEO of Disney, and arguably maybe one of the best media leaders of our time, or maybe ever. He was responsible for the acquisition of Pixar and Marvel and Lucasfilms, and turning around Disney when, they're really in the dumps. But it really was like, just always be a student. And when you hear that from somebody who has arrived, I mean, he's arrived. My mom also has arrived, but that's less relevant to you. I think it really resonates. So whether you're just starting out, or you're, running shows and have, multiple shows at Disney, like Jonathan does, it's this kind of ability to constantly absorb and read and watch and, understand what's going on around you. And I mean, when you're starting out, you probably don't understand as much of what you're reading, but it all will come back home to kind of crystallize at some point. And it's kind of all you have when you're starting, but you have unparalleled access to behind the scenes. Like, you could probably get your hands on any script. You could probably get your hands, on any memoir, or kind of the behind the scenes of any angle of the business that you're interested in. So I would just advise you to do that. And if you're kind of reading and you're not that interested, that's probably pretty telling too. But if you can't stop kind of consuming and learning more about it, it's very telling, right? It kind of shows you that you're going to have the passion for the long hours that, everybody on this panel works. And it is in that kind of the same vein that, like, the skills that you learn when you're just starting out as a PA, as Jonathan was saying, really do, like, when you're running a company, it's like those habits, those skills, those lessons learned about how you deal with a problem, how you deal with communication, they all translate. So yeah, that's really kind of, it's been a mantra like my entire career.
It is. Go for it, Daphne. Sorry, go for
I
it.
was just going to chime in a little bit, from a different angle. So I started as an assistant in a visual effects company, and I actually wanted to go to law school and changed my mind last minute. And, that I still have some regrets around that, but we'll keep talking. And so, for me, it was really eye-opening, because I immediately realized that I was obsessed with image quality and images, and what it actually took to make a visual effects shot, for example. And then that parlayed into color correction and sound and audio. And so I say that because some of your skills that you may not even be studying them right now, but if somebody comes in for an interview as an intern or even as an assistant, and they say, I'm a musician and I love the way a certain composition sounds on a particular film, that's going to be something that would be interesting to us on the audio side and post-production. We look for painters to be colorists, junior colorists. So anyone who's interested in art, as it relates to any kind of images and sound, there's a whole career there that is ripe for young, new ideas. And so I like to throw that out there because I know Kenyon is so strong in English and in other areas, but I know for sure that there are artists among you that are painters. And so that's just another angle to think about this business.
It's funny, there's been some through lines that I was just sort of writing down that I think is so important to this as we sit on a Zoom with a bunch of students, is that I think that what is so interesting here is that everyone that is on the Zoom from our side of the panel, no matter where we are in our careers, is a student in many ways. And like, there's still always so much for us to learn. There's so much that's change that still happens. I think it's fascinating in a business where we are having hands in varying degrees of people on the Zoom, having from a creative, such as Jonathan and Will, to Samie, who's helping, get books and commission things and sort of leading that thought. Like, we have to be consumers of content always. And I think that the way that for the students, like, it's just what you're studying and what your classes are and what so you design your education to be is just as important as the thing you might pick up to do in your free time. What music you're listening to, what movies or TV you're watching, what NFT, I don't even know what this word is, but what NFTs you're like. Autumn, your face right now is fantastic. Thank you for that, because I'm in the same place. That's how I feel. But like, it's a sense of like being at the forefront of technology and culture and having that is still so much ingrained in who we are. And colleagues of mine who are in their 70s are the exact same. It is a love that we all have for this that I think never goes away, and is something that is so important to what we bring. It's just an interesting through line. I think people have sort of touched upon all of that.
I want to just throw a couple things in as well. All of that is insanely true. Developing your own voice and vocabulary and taste is the heart of the matter. But there's also the fact that you all are very young and have to figure out a way to make yourselves useful, right, in your first jobs. So just be aware of that you can make yourself useful while you learn, whether that's in the mailroom of an agency where you're going to get a really broad look at how the industry works, or whether it's as a PA on a set where you may be locking up traffic so that they can roll a shot, but you're also going to see how a director lines up his shot, how an actor works with that director to get to the right performance. So even the jobs where you are making yourself useful in ways that you don't want to do for the rest of your life, you're going to absorb, how the sausage is made. And then just to emphasize what Daphne's saying, there are extraordinary jobs in this field. There's obviously agents and writers and development executives and producers, but there are also designers and cinematographers like Will, and editors. Editorial work is filmmaking at its most refined. And there are lots of ways to make yourself useful in those pockets and chambers of the business that will help guide you into the next step for you, or into whatever ultimately becomes your career. But pay a lot of attention to how to be useful to whoever is hiring you and to whoever is hiring them. And don't be insulted about the fact that may be locking up traffic or running dailies over to a transfer house. Pay attention to the bigger picture for the first couple of years and make yourself useful.
Hey, should we answer this question? I see a question came up, seemed like a really good one. What is our day-to-day craziness?
I'm so excited to hear what that answer is for everyone.
Okay. So
Rich, you want to start that?
I'll start. Okay. I represent, I don't know, maybe 50 or 60 people of the mix of people that I mentioned earlier, directors, writers, actors. And, my day-to-day is thinking about, how do I keep these people busy? Sometimes I have to generate ideas based on scripts that are available, scripts, books, articles that are out there that seem like good ideas for movies. I don't have to go read the New York Times myself and find them. the agencies have systems for generating what is the available material. So we are mostly working from a vast pool of identified material. It's in development at a studio, a producer has it. So we look at all this material, we say, okay, so what do I think my clients might be interested in? Okay, so that's part of my job. The other part of my job is some of my clients fortunately come up with it themselves, right? Like I don't have to say to the Coen brothers, hey, I got a great idea for a movie, right? They've got a few of their own ideas. So then that part of the job is, well, how do I help you achieve the movie you want to make? Like, and believe it or not, even very experienced filmmakers are constantly having to balance what's their creative vision, right? And versus what are the current economic realities of the market. As the Coens often say, what do I need to get my London broil? It's an old school cut of meat that Jewish people ate, no more. But, the idea is, how do you get what you need? Do I need Leonardo DiCaprio in this role, or can I have Josh Brolin? Like those kinds of questions. And so, yes, even humble Rich Klubeck has opinions, not trying to give them my creative, I don't think you guys really have a good sense of casting. Of course they have a good sense of casting, but I have a good sense of what is the marketplace appetite for that actor, because that will translate into what budget can you get. It's not a direct correlation, or else anybody could do it, right? Why do I get to say I'm unique, I'm better than Andrew at this, which I've actually never said in my life, but that's the idea. Got to be better.
I'll admit it, he is.
I've never said it, Andrew, I promise. But the point is, I've got to be better than my competition, meaning I have to have well-considered and developed opinions about the marketplace from a financing standpoint, from a marketing standpoint. Emily Wolfe knows this because I've been through many movies with Emily Wolfe. So she knows the ins and outs of all this. I have to know when Emily was at Netflix and I was representing any of a number of filmmakers who made movies with her over Netflix, I have to convince Emily, well, my director wants this actor, and that's great for you guys. You may not agree, but you should agree for these reasons. This is who they want. This is what the market appetite is. This is the films this actor has coming out. Come on, this is going to work. And so anyway, now you take these conversations, multiply them by 10,000, and you know what my week is like.
I want to kick that same question over to Jonathan, because there's a couple questions that have come up in the chat about creative side, but also development production, like running, how creative comes together and that crazy, what the day-to-day, like a set is such a community. When you're running a show, how do you keep it all straight, and how does that all work?
Yeah, it's crazy. It's like a lot of plates in the air at once, and you have to be really good at triage, prioritizing. Like, a showrunner, like on a network show like Blackish, when you're making possibly 24 episodes a season, which is kind of bananas, that kind of is going by the boards. That doesn't happen as much anymore. I'm doing a show right now that's 10 episodes, but my writers are mostly finished. So I have a couple of writers back in Los Angeles. I'm shooting in Brooklyn. So right now, I get up, I go to the set. I don't have any writers to cover the set because they're all finished pretty much. They're off the payroll, basically. I have a couple who are still working, but they're in LA. I get to the set, I watch the rehearsal, I make any changes I need to do. Then I reach out to the writers. We need to fix some things in some later episodes that we're still rewriting. Luckily, stories are already broken. So, on a normal show, you would then spend part of your morning or your day trying to figure out a new story. Uh-oh, I got to go to editing. Uh-oh, I got to go back to set. There's an actor who needs to talk to me about something. I want to watch a rehearsal. Oh, there's a network phone call or a studio phone call. They have problems with the story or the outline for episode 8, and we're shooting episode 4. We got to do a rewrite. We have a table read of this. I mean, it is a literally plain stacking up on top of each other, and you have to get good at good assistance, good delegation to people who can keep a rewrite running while you're out of the room in editing or in going to a sound mix or on stage, or in fixing a story problem. So it's a pipeline process in television that is really kind of harrowing and exciting, but it's intense, and you're always, I think to run a show really well, you need to have really 3 people like you can really trust and speak for each other, like somebody who can really keep the writer's room moving and going while you're not in it, or keep a story broken, even if you're going to kind of have a gateway or a checkpoint where you can get in later and help fix something. You have to let them run for a while with their version of it to keep the process moving, or else if you try to do it all yourself, it's gonna break down. You're not gonna hold up, especially in a long season. So it's about hiring the good lieutenants, empowering them, but also articulating the firm's vision and helping to say like, okay, this is what I want, because it's all about what the showrunner ultimately wants in TV, and obviously working with the network and the studio, who also have opinions about what they want. So it's intense. It's exciting.
As much as I love crazy stories, because I think that it just makes us feel like we're not all insane in what we do to hear about other people's craziness. We do have 10 minutes left, but there was one question I loved and I just think is so great for everyone's opinion. So Laura, your question: with streaming services, there are so many shows only available on only so many hours in a day, along with schoolwork to watch. Is it better to have seen the entirety of a classic show or to be caught up on the new shows? And I will say your question and say like Entourage, which is such an interesting view into our world, so hyper driven, and in some places has so much relevance and is so true, but also is such a overblown, it's such a different view of actually, I think, it's the day-to-day. But I'm curious to everyone's choice, but what it is, because it's true, there is not enough time in the day for us to all watch what we do. So I'm curious if anyone has an answer about what their thought is in that.
I would say yes, and you need to be doing both. Sadly, a show you love, you need to watch to completion to understand what it takes to build it, soup to nuts. And you also need to be sampling what's current and what's being talked about. So sadly, you kind of have to do both, I think. I don't know. Others disagree?
I think it's interesting. I mean, from my side of things, when you hear a new voice, and there's the path to creation these days, the ability to get something into the world. I think 15, 20 years ago was so much more difficult. There were 4 networks that you could really choose from. There was a much more linear progression about how voices were discovered. Today, and this I think goes to a lot of the creatives, and maybe searches back to another question, like the invention of technology and the ease of what this ends up being and being able to put things out into the world. It's opened up so much. So new and emerging voices come from every which way. And so something like Two Dope Queens, for example, that's an amazing example of people who have just sort of created and come into this world in a big way. It's just, I think it's where it's following what I like and knowing sort of what's in conversation in the community. For example, a show Under the Banner of Heaven, which is a book that I've loved for a very long time. And it was tried to be a movie for a very long time. It's now as a show. Like, I'm so curious about what that is. Great actors involved, great people involved. Samie, you can talk about that too. But that just piques my curiosity. But also, I love Moon Knight because I'm a big comic book guy. So I'm going to go turn on that and watch something like that. It might not serve my purpose in what I do day to day, but I think it goes back to the conversation that we've had before. I can speak to something. It's about an opinion. It's about just being able to speak about elegantly your love of what it is we do.
Well, I just want to say I agree with Janet, because for example, when I May Destroy You first dropped, I wasn't really that hip to it, but someone mentioned it to me and just offhandedly, and that led to me being part of our little signing team here that signed Michaela Cole, which is really important to me, and it's not, I just knowing the truth of what Janet's saying, there's so much that you don't know you're going to want to watch to the end unless you watch the beginning. And in some instances, you will see it through. I mean, once I started I May Destroy You, I couldn't turn it off. Whereas there's another show, I don't want to name it because I know who's involved with it, but I heard amazing things about it. And I watched the first episode. I said, okay, I'm good. I got it. I think that's an interesting show. It's not for me. Under the Banner of Heaven, I represent the director who did the first couple episodes because someone said, you just got to check out this book. And so, you got to know the people you trust, and you've got to try stuff knowing you may not finish it, right? When you finish it, that says something to you. But I think Jan's answer was exactly right. I mean, I've just experienced it.
Totally agree.
Work.
Hey, Andrew, I feel like there's questions in the chat that I get a lot that we should answer, which is a lot around
please,
like,
take it.
like how do you get your first, and maybe like Groff should opine on this as well, but like how do you get your first writer's assistant job, like PA jobs, like these jobs that are, you know, the answer, I mean, the honest answer is they are actually incredibly competitive. Like they are entry level, but they are very, very competitive and they're sought after. And, you know, sometimes it's hard to move up. So that's kind of the bad news. I mean, I think the good news is like, there's a path to get there. And my advice would be like, take any / the best job you can get. Like my first job out of school, I was a page at NBC. I wore a uniform. I made $7 an hour and I gave studio tours walking backwards in heels. Like it was
A very
not
hard job to
great.
get, by the way.
But by the way, it was very hard to get that job. It was not great.
Don't downplay that job. That's all.
I mean, it was a hard job to get, but even to jump from there was really hard. But you know what? Like I didn't know a person for 3,000 miles around me. Like I was in. And you know, I think if you get one of these mailroom jobs where there's no mail but lots of time, like you hear things. So everything is just I mean, information is like the best currency we have in this business. So if you can situate yourself anywhere, even on the periphery of a place where you might hear information, like you'll get there. And I mean, this is again where it kind of ties into everything we've talked about already about like using all your Kenyon communication skills and your sense of community and, you know, your dazzling personalities to make an imprint on somebody. I think it's just, yeah, like, you'll start to go, okay, like the only job I could get was, I mean, in my day, they don't do this anymore. It was like, you know, wearing a uniform or running bagels around town, like low sodium bagels of all things, like who eats a low sodium bagel, but like you running bagels around town for like a high-end producer, but like you want to just get near the traffic. So it's kind of a general answer for a specific question, but it is really hard to get into that kind of PA, writer's assistant, you know, circle, but you can do it, but you just want to be like where the agents are, where the shows are happening, where you're going to hear things, where you're going to meet other peers. The best career advice I've ever gotten, or the best kind of tips I've gotten, have always been the people who are like one class above me, like just like high enough to like not be a competitor, but they're also vacating a seat. So maybe I can step into it. So like, those are the people that I've always gotten great job tips from. Anyway, that's what I would say. I don't know if anybody wants to add anything to that, but I know that that's like the most daunting issue on all of your minds right now, pressing issue.
And you know, with our last 2 seconds, best advice, you know, as you start your career.
I would also just add, don't take rejection too hard, because I mean, Sammy's so right. These jobs are all competitive, but if you are passionate, if you do the things everyone's saying here about educating yourself on what's good out there, what you care about, you're going to get rejected a lot. It ain't that personal. You know, you have to just, it's the kind of industry, you're not, you know, if you want to be an actor, you're really going to get a lot of rejection. But if you want to be a page at NBC, you're probably going to get rejected occasionally, and you just can't take that too personally. You just got to really keep believing you're gonna break through, because they should be so lucky as to have you, right? Because you're a hard worker, you got taste, you're cool, you're whatever you are. Like, you got to believe in yourself, and that's not easy for people. So hopefully there's some people around you saying, don't worry, you're gonna be okay. You know, you're highly educated, you're motivated, and someone will be lucky enough to realize that and give you the shot. Just keep plugging away.
I want to add something important, just the most important advice that I try to give to a lot of people, which is kind of connects to what Rich and Andrew and everyone is saying here, that while you're doing these things and trying to get these jobs, especially writers and directors, please always be creating your own work. Like Andrew was saying, it takes a cell phone. It doesn't cost what it did 20 years ago when I was starting out to create your own material also, because when you are lucky enough to get into a room with one of these people, or even if they may not even know you, but it's because you have something that you can show to say, oh, here's something I made. Or they might see it on YouTube or on any number of things and say, oh, you know, I need a writer who talks like that. I might talk to this guy. Like, having work available that you've made, even on a low budget, is very helpful to be in a situation where you can show it to somebody. So always keep creating, no matter what you're doing in your job or you know, trying to make money and live. Be creating.
I think to that point as well, I would say is always expand your community. I think someone touched on this before. You know, like this community is based upon people that love what we do and, you know, are so involved in it. It's building your network is I think someone rightfully said, is a dirty word in some cases, but networking and having that conversation, being able to build relationships. You never know where someone says, oh, I need someone for this. And you show up and then you meet someone from that and it leads to its next big thing. Keeping yourself open to any opportunity, you know, don't pigeonhole yourself. If one job comes along, you go, I don't want this one. This is not what I want to do. You don't know what that might lead to. In 6 months, you might go, all right, you're right, not worth it. But that education is invaluable to deciding and narrowing down your focus about what it is that really drives you and what it is you really want to find in this business for yourself. Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Go for it.
Just really quickly, piggybacking off of that, I think I found right when I graduated, a lot of people like were in a real state of paralysis, trying to find this kind of perfect job. And you learn so much from any job you take, right? You learn the environment you want to be in. I saw like Samie just in the chat talked about finding the right fit. Like you learn you want to be at a big company or a small company. Just do it. Like just do something. It might not be the perfect job, but you'll eventually get there.
Yep. Thank you all for joining. Thank you for the panelists for taking the time. Thank you, Kim and Annie, for doing this. Personally, thank you for all of you that had your camera on that like gave me like a little glimpse back into Kenyon. Lehman Kessler gets a big shout out for giving us a tour the entire time of the campus and seeing that again. Nice to see how it's looking. We plan on doing this again. We appreciate your guys' feedback on all of this as well. We'd like to, you know, as we said, you know, break this down into smaller groups as well, because I feel like there's a lot of people that have specific questions to ask to specific panel members. So bear with us as we figure that out, but we're really looking forward to seeing you guys again and talking about this. Like we said, we all love Kenyon. It means the world to us. And so we are here with you guys and can't wait to see you in the entertainment community.
Good luck, you guys.
Thanks so much, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, y'all. Appreciate it.
Everybody.